Hey there, thinkers, and welcome back to Critical Hit. My name is Est, and we're back with this whole Madame Webb fiasco. So, let's get into it, shall we? So, I think it's safe to say that Madame Webb has united almost the entire internet against it, with negative reviews all over YouTube and Rotten Tomatoes. It absolutely appears that we're going to have another female superhero film bomb at the box office. But what about the small percentage of the internet that's not falling in line with the common sense? That small percentage, it's actually praising the movie. Like, who are these people? Well, they're pretty much who you'd expect them to be.
Madame Webb is ridiculous. It makes no sense at times. It's over the top. And I have to say, I kind of enjoyed it.
The alphabet people.
The alphabet mafia and feminists are pretty much the only ones who have seen praising and defending this movie because, well, they're, you know.
You know who I mean.
Hannah Rose over CBR gives it a positive rating and says, although it gets its feet a little tangled at the start, Madame Webb weaves a strong and cohesive narrative celebrating feminine leadership, a rejection of pessimistic fatalism, and the empowerment that comes with embracing responsibility. Tell me you're a feminist without actually telling me you're a feminist. Here we have Rosie Knight of The National gives Madame Webb a 3.5 out of 5, saying the charming cast, spooky supernatural tone, and often genuinely funny script. Side note, it's not funny. Madame Webb is definitely in on the joke, making this an enjoyable popcorn film that's likely to become a bit of a comic book cult classic in years to come. I highly doubt that.
I don't see it happening.
Michael O'Sullivan at The Washington Post gives it a 2.5 out of 4. And says Madame Webb is no blockbuster. In its own quiet way, it manages to break down a few barriers. I mean, in a way that's true. It got a lot of people on the internet who normally disagree with each other to actually agree with each other for once. Rachel Leishman of The Mary Sue, she's the woman that tried to cancel Nerdrotic a few days ago, gives the movie 3 out of 5 stars, and says, in her full article, sometimes you just want to watch spider people doing their thing. And that's what Madame Webb was for me. And hey, I'm a woman enough to admit that maybe this was the kind of movie that was made for Spider-Man fans, like I am, who just love to exist in New York that Peter Parker knew and loves. But honestly, Madame Webb was just fun to watch. Yes, the I had fun watching it defense returns to Madame Webb. What a shock. And then we have Jamie Broadnax of Black Girl Nerds. She also agrees, and she gives it a 4 out of 5. The action-packed scenes that she does mention are pretty much all the same. It's 4 women getting chased by a fake Spider-Man. Anthony O'Connor says, a strong premise, a talented cast, and some of the dopest moments on the big screen in recent memory. It's a bit of a mess, although not with its notable moments. Gives it a 12 out of 20. I have no idea what kind of score this is. Maybe it's an Australian thing. Madame Webb is not the unmitigated disaster that its clunky trailer or its calendar spot in February would suggest, says Chrissy Lemire, a top critic, who gives it a 2.5 out of 4. In her full article, she says, maybe that's inevitable, though when you're introducing a new character to a wide audience, still within these oversaturated times for comic book movies, Madame Webb is blissfully breezy in its pacing, which helps make it more enjoyable to watch than some of the super serious end-of-the-world fare we often see.
We live in this era where we have to make the most serious content, and this is a disgrace to my superhero movies.
By these kind of movies that aren't perfect, I mean, at least those movies had some action that weren't constantly running away from the villain.
Girl, y'all weren't there in the bad times, like the dark times, the times where I was shaped and molded by a Spider-Man 3, by an X-Men The Last Stand, by a Constantine, by these kind of movies that aren't perfect.
And speaking of the villain, Ezekiel, the fake Spider-Man, is one of the worst villains I have ever seen in a superhero movie. Maybe ever. And yes, I've actually watched the Marvels. Alonso Duralde from The Film Verdict gives Madame Webb a positive rating despite a tangled narrative web. This arachnid superhero saga makes a far better would-be tentpole for Sony's Spider-Verse than The Amazing Spider-Man 2 or Venom, and thanks to mainly Dakota Johnson.
I think this is better than Morbius, it's better than Venom 2, it's kind of right under there with the first Venom.
Conveniently, this guy fails to mention that the same writing team that worked on Madame Webb also worked on Morbius. So I think it'd be fine to put these two films on the same level, but Madame Webb and the first Venom movie on the same level, I don't think so. And in case you were wondering, this guy is a certified Rotten Tomatoes critic. By the way, pathetic. I would have to say, don't go see this movie. Don't waste your money. Don't even bother watching it on streaming services, even if it's for free, because in probably about a week or so, people are going to completely forget that this movie even exists. Let me know your opinions on this in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button, tap that like button, and ring the notification bell to be notified for our next video. This is Est, signing off, and I'll see you in the next one. Toodles!